Thank you very much, everybody. I will try not to keep you from the canapes for too long, but I think I would like to take some time to tell you about what I think is an exciting proposition. Open Orphan PLC has been about for about 18 months. It was formed as an investment vehicle to acquire small CRO businesses working in clinical research services to form larger, more profitable business. And recently, Open Orphan PLC announced the merger with hVivo, the company that I was responsible for. And we've now formed this new, larger CRO, which I'm going to tell you about. We don't need that. So before we get into a description of the business, I thought it'd be very useful for you to at least be aware of who the management were that are leading the company. So the executive chairman, who can't be here tonight, Cathal Friel, he established Open Orphan in 2016 with this aim of creating this rolled up CRO service business. He's got a background mainly in corporate finance. He knows how to do deals, raise money, and he remains actively involved in helping manage this company as we go through the growth phase. Myself, Trevor Phillips, I've been in the industry in pharma for over 30 years, started off in services, moved into large pharma, Glaxo Wellcome, and then into smaller biotechs, finishing off recently in the UK at a group called Vectura Group PLC. After I left there, I was asked to go to hVivo, which was then a struggling AIM-listed CRO, to try and help turn around that business. And I've been there since November 2017, working on a strategy that was very, very similar to the work that Cathal was doing. Yeah. Alongside me as Chief Operating Officer of the new Open Orphan company is Tim Sharpington, very similar, slightly younger than me, slightly less grey hair. Slightly less hair, in fact. He's obviously not here, otherwise I couldn't have done that. He's got about 25 years experience, similarly pharma product development, but actually importantly, a few years back, he was the head of the European operations for a large CRO based in Ireland called Icon. Icon is now valued at £8 billion. It wasn't valued at that when he was there, but he actually led the growth strategy for Icon, going out acquiring other CROs throughout Europe, which was part of the build-up of growth of Icon to the company that it is today. In terms of board directors who've come on board to help us, when we merged the companies, we brought one non-executive director from each company. So Mark Warren, who was on the board with me at hVivo, is with us. He's a full-time CEO of another business, but has got very good background in managing smaller healthcare-based companies. Professor Brendan Buckley came from the Open Orphan board. He actually was a former medical director at Icon Clinical Research. So again, he's got a good background in CRO services. And just to match that and add to it, we added Michael Mead as a non-executive director, and he actually has really been in the investment banking arena in London for the last 30 years. He was at Numis Securities, specialist in healthcare sector, and he, in fact, when I was at Open Orphan, was my nomad. So this is the management team that are working to create this new Open Orphan business. So what is it? What have we got here? As I said, Open Orphan was formed in 2016 as a group aimed towards creating a rolled-up pharma CRO services business. Last year, it acquired a well-established group based in Ireland and Paris and the Netherlands called Venn Life Sciences. And Venn Life Sciences itself was created through acquisition. It's an integrated drug development consultancy. It has core people inside there who are experts in the key areas of developing drugs, from preclinical, which is where you do the work to develop products, and you have to do the various animal experiments before you go into humans, through the early human development stages, such as phase 1, to the late stage development areas of phase 2 and beyond, and regulatory. Venn Life Sciences was itself created by the acquisition and combination of two companies, one based in Paris that had been around for 25 years and was very, very expert in clinical, regulatory and stats and data management, and another based in Breda in the Netherlands that was very, very expert in the early stage, the preclinical development and the phase 1 development of products. And together they form a comprehensive development consultancy that has a long history of supporting its clients and many clients who've been with them for many, many years. Companies like Boehringer Ingelheim, Pharmin and others do an awful lot of work with Venn Life Sciences as a company. hVivo, the company that recently came in, the company that I was with, was established in 1992. We're based right here. Our clinical unit is in Whitechapel, behind the Barts and Royal London Hospital. It's quite a specialist unit. It actually is a special quarantine-based unit. It's a big word at the moment, quite popular. And we specialize in supporting companies who are developing products and vaccines against viruses, particularly respiratory viruses such as flu, respiratory syncytial virus or RSV, and the common cold. We also do support the development of respiratory products as well. We don't currently work on coronavirus. Coronaviruses have been around a long, long time, notoriously difficult to develop vaccines against. I'm not going to give you a lecture on coronaviruses. I'm actually a microbiologist by training, so I'm aware of them a bit. But actually, most of the time when you get a common cold, often the thing that's responsible for it is a coronavirus. Sometimes it's a rhinovirus, but sometimes it's a coronavirus. So coronaviruses are around. Clearly, COVID-19 is a problem. That is going to get a lot of attention from pharma companies moving forward. But getting back to hVivo, we're a specialist company, right? We run special clinical trials that help those companies developing new vaccines against flu and RSV or products against that flu and RSV to get a very rapid determination of whether their product works or not before they go into those really expensive field-based trials that cost tens to hundreds of millions and require lots and lots of patients. So what we have in Open Orphan PLC now is some very specialized services that pharma companies come to us for specific support in development of key products. And the reason that they come to us is because we've been doing it an awful long time. We've got a lot of know-how, a lot of insight, and a lot of expertise that in some cases those pharma companies don't possess themselves. And it's not just small pharma companies. It's not, the small biotechs. We have companies like Merck, GSK working with us, Boehringer Ingelheim work with us, big pharma companies in the top 10 that work with us too. So we have a range of clients. I'll explain a bit more about our capabilities going forward in a moment, but I would like to also point out there are two other key areas inside the business that have potential value. One is the Open Orphan database, which was the original part created inside Open Orphan. Orphan drugs are orphan diseases, are diseases for which there are less than 100,000 patients in either the EU or in the US. They're a special designated area where there are low populations, there's not a lot of information about the disease apart from the few expert physicians that treat. And companies are now focusing towards this because it's a key area of unmet medical need. And part of the problem that they often face is getting hold of genuine information about the patients and the disease and the symptoms and the genetics that are associated with it that help them develop products against them. And what we are creating right now is a data platform where we will get the patients to actually gain access to their data, we will load it into that platform, and then we will sell back that information to pharma companies who can use the AI tools in that data platform to help determine more information, to help them more successfully develop products as they go forward. So that's a new concept that is being worked up at the moment. It's a small component of the overall business, but it has some potential. And then finally, one very quick point is we have a partial ownership in a company called Immutex. And Immutex is a funding vehicle that contains the the intellectual property associated with 2 new vaccines. One is a universal flu vaccine called Flu V, and another is actually a vaccine developed against mosquito saliva, which could become a universal vaccine against any mosquito-borne disease. Now, the mosquito vaccine is very early stage. It's only just going into man now. But the universal flu vaccine has already been in 2 phase 2 trials. We reported the data from those last year. Publications will be coming out on those later this year, which will further enhance the visibility of this particular product. Universal flu is something that people are chasing after. If we could get a vaccine that would protect all of us here from any flu strain that comes around, it would be very, very valuable. And the only problem with it is no one's ever been able to develop one. And more importantly, the regulatory authorities in America, in Europe, FDA and EMEA, haven't agreed on what the steps to get a product to market are yet. So we've got data that shows our vaccine works. It protected people. They got less sick. And so we are now preparing to go and talk to these regulatory authorities to get further clarification on exactly what's needed to take the product through phase 3 into the market. And once we've got that information, we intend to go out and talk to the large vaccine-producing pharma companies to try and out-license that product to them, because quite frankly, we don't have the money to develop it. Right? To take it any further would cost probably $100 million. I'm not sure any of you have got that. I certainly don't, and we certainly don't. So those of you who are thinking about this company, we're talking about a service company that's got an asset here that could be valuable if we were to license it, but will not be taking any further of our cash or any of our assets. We will look to license that. We won't be putting any more into that product. So where's the value creation from combining these 2 companies? What's the important opportunity? Right? hVIVO is an expert in doing what's known as challenge studies. We get healthy volunteers, we bring them in, we immunize them with a new vaccine designed against flu. A month later, we bring them back into the unit and we give them flu. Now, it's the only clinical trial I've ever worked on where we deliberately try to make people sick. Okay? And then we've got a lab that supports that. Okay? And we're one of the leading experts in the world. We're one of the few companies that do it. We are seen as the go-to people because we've been doing this since 1992. We have run over 3,000 people through these trials. We have a lot of expertise. And client companies often come to us at a very early stage of a product's development, before it's even gone into man, to talk to us about what they need to do to get to our challenge study. We end up having a 3-year relationship where we talk about what you need to do to develop a product, and then they finally actually do some work with us in year 3, and we earn maybe £3 to £5 million from that one study. And then they leave. And then they go off into the late-stage field trials that you would run, the phase 2s, the phase 3s, that we don't have the capability of supporting. And the Open Orphan group, who have the consulting expertise and capability, have all of this preclinical capability that occurs before a challenge study, and all of this ability after a challenge study to continue supporting clients. So now when we talk to a client and they say to us, when we're at this stage, what do we need to do? We can say, well, you work with us and we'll take you through here, and then we'll take you through here, and then we'll take you through this. And instead of a relationship that might last 3 years for 3 to 5 million, you have one that basically can last 3 to 8 years and might be worth 10 to 20 million, depending on the amount of work you get. So it unleashes greater revenue potential from an individual client company that wasn't possible for either company alone. And that's the key to this, is being able to provide a broader, better service and gaining better value out of the very strong client relationships that both hVIVO and Open Orphan have generated over the 25 plus years they've been working. As I said, historically, I've talked a bit about what Open Orphan is. It's the Venn company, okay? And the issue with Venn was, as a small AIM-listed company generating revenues on its own, it wasn't quite profitable, okay? And so part of the problem was the overall expenses were obviously exceeding the revenue stream. It was running low on cash, and it needed to do something to turn it around. And Cathal Friel, when he bought the company, when he reversed into it, immediately set about on a program to actually move the company towards profitability. Okay. Sorry, I've passed on that. hVivo, absolutely identical situation. Okay. Well-established business, right? Well known in the world for what it does, but had lost its way when it was running its services. Kind of used some of the knowledge it had built up over the years to think about maybe trying to discover new products itself and spend money on that, instead of focusing on the service business, right, that people valued and came to us for. So I was brought in along with others to refocus the business. Same thing, turnaround strategy. Right? Reduce the cost base, right? Focus on delivering the service that creates the revenue, that creates the value for the business. We've taken £11 million out of the cost base compared to 2017. Right? We've been rationalising the business since the day I came on board. We've been growing the revenue streams. We've been getting the company to the point that it's on the verge of profitability. And when you combine the two businesses, you can take it to that next stage. And that's really what this strategy is about. Okay? As I said, hVivo's got something that's in fashion at the moment, clearly. And that is, we've got this 24-bed quarantine unit in over in Whitechapel. Right? 24 rooms, individual isolation rooms, because whenever we are handling a virus in there, we have to make sure it stays there. Okay? And so patients will come in, or subjects will come in, they will get infected, they do not leave until they're clear, they're not shedding virus anymore. We all know what shedding virus is now. Many of us wouldn't a while ago, but it's when the virus is still coming out of you. You may not be symptomatic, you may not know you're infected. So virus shedding is the main way of obviously spreading disease. So we have a 24-bed unit in Whitechapel. We have the state-of-the-art lab facilities to enable us to do supporting work around that. And then on top of that, we have these challenge models, 8 of them, different models that can be used by pharma companies to help work out whether their companies work or not. So we have a lot of assets, a lot of capability, and a lot of know-how. And I talked earlier about how our services model changes when we combine the businesses. And this is an example of where it is now. You know, customer A came to us recently. They wanted to talk about a challenge study. When we combine, and now we're combined, we can actually talk about providing all of these capabilities to them. And suddenly, a potential contract that we were looking at that might have been 3 million is now worth 7.5 million going forward. Not signed yet, but it's in that discussion stage. And similarly here, customer C was one where we'd actually already completed a challenge study, established a brilliant relationship with them. They really liked us, but we couldn't do anything else for them. But now we can say to them, we can do your phase 2 studies and your lab support, and we've even got a contract from them now for medical writing. So, you know, taking more out of a client relationship is an important value driver for us going forward. Sadly, viruses are in focus right now for various reasons. I just want to quickly show that both companies, going through the process of trying to sort out their business, have been able to actually really bolster their business development pipeline. When I first came on board with the company, our pipeline was generally valued at about 30, 38, 39 million pounds. It's currently sitting at about 81 million pounds. We've typically in the past converted about 40% of that pipeline. I'm not saying, therefore, we're going to get 40% of 81 million pounds, but I'm absolutely saying we're going to show revenue growth compared to last year. And last year, we grew revenue compared to the year before and the same. Orphan have been working to actually take those great relationships which they've had with companies time on over 25 years and turn them into long-term contracts. So instead of getting 15 contracts from one company over 2 years, we've got one contract now over 3 years with recurring monthly revenues from 3 major pharma companies, Ipsen, Kana and Boehringer Ingelheim. We've already got 10.5 million of confirmed backlog signed up for the company this year, and there's a lot more work under discussion right now. So the pipeline, the combined pipeline, is absolutely strong between the companies, and that's before we get any of the revenue synergies that we've talked about, where we gain the ability to serve our customers with more of our services. By combining businesses, you always get synergies. And what we can say here is that because we are able to make these significant changes to the company structures and sizes, we can actually bring the cost base down much, much further now, which enables that profitability that we've been seeking. So what we are really talking about in terms of Open Orphan as a business now is one that is still specialist, still world leading in its key areas, has great synergy opportunities where it can actually really maximize its ability to be profitable on those services. Really good growth opportunities because the two complementary natures of the businesses enables us to try to gain more services out of clients that we typically wouldn't have been able to gain in the future. And then we've got a management team here that has the experience and the know-how to make it happen. And as you probably would have seen from this, we've already started making it happen. We expect to make this happen now for the rest of this year and beyond. Thank you.
Very basic question. What are you capitalized at the moment?
Our market cap is about 1 times revenue, about 30 million.
20 million?
30.
30. Do you think that's adequate for the aspirations that you might have?
I think the issue for any company in the CRO services arena typically seen is that until you're profitable, you're generally valued at about 1 times revenue. Once you hit profitability, you generally see that model shift. So if you look at some of our peers, then they're usually sitting at 2 to 3 times.
Your
revenue.
main market, is it just UK or are you trying to go to Europe?
So our clients are global. We have US, we have Europe, we have some Asian clients as well. So they come from all over because actually each company is very well known.
Yeah, so you talked about your quarantine lab, and obviously coronavirus vaccine studies are going to be starting soon. So are you talking to the people who are going to be doing those studies? Because it seems like you're the ideal place to do those studies.
Yeah, yes, we are. We're talking to all the companies about what their plans are, and they're often coming to us to say, do you have capability or do you have space? We would have to work, right now coronavirus is graded as a category 3 because it's unknown in many respects and they're not sure about its level of pathogenicity. So most place facilities such as ours are allowed to work at category 2, not category 3. However, once they get to a point where it's regarded as a pandemic, it will then become category 2 and we would be able to work with it. I think one of the things you could do with our facility is maybe instead of putting people who maybe are at risk of having been severely exposed into a Holiday Inn or Hilton or somewhere, is actually lock them into there. It's not that bad. You have your own room, your own shower, Sky TV, PlayStations if you're into it. So it's reasonably comfortable, and you've got a full medical team there, of course.
So is that like to happen in the short term? Sorry.
That's the NHS is aware of our facility. Should they need to discuss it with us, I'm sure they will be in touch. So, but we will be open to that. Yes.
What I wanted to ask was, you said on one slide that you initially, with the limited capability, you'd have talking for 2 to 3 years, and you could potentially get a 3-year contract, £3 million contract. Mm-hmm. But if you've talked for 2 years and you don't secure that contract, what's your game then? You've just spent a lot of time and expertise. But even going further, when you've built that relationship and talk to the people, so in that first case, you get £1 million per year if they sign in the 3rd year. But even in that second scenario where you actually get, 7 to 8, you talk for 7 to 8 million a year, sorry, mm-hmm. and you get £8 million, it's still £1 million per year. Mm-hmm. So where's the real benefits, the add-on coming in?
Well, what happens is you typically, we have a lot of conversations, quite frankly. So, the hVivo side has a pool of around 50 companies in the world that really focus in the areas that we offer services around. we're probably usually talking to about 30 or 40 of them every year, depending on how much they're bringing through. They're often bringing multiple programs through. So the pipeline is really based around those conversations. But you are quite right. We could get a study that might last 4 months and be worth £3 million to us. We could get a study that might last 8 months and might be worth £12 million to us. It depends on the size and the design of the study. So it's a blend. I was trying to be more generic about the way, but you're quite right. We have to have an awful lot of conversations, and we have to make sure our business development people close the deal, and that's the critical bit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions from the floor? I've got a couple. Are you intending to buy any more companies needed to complete the set, or are you acquisition stage, HV, Open, Orphan, pretty much?
I think for now, we're focused on being profitable, and that's what we have to do, and we expect to deliver that this year. Once we achieve that profitability and achieve the revenue growth and stability that the company needs, we will look to explore the best options for that business. My personal view is that one of the best ways of that business being further developed is probably to join in with another larger CRO business. I mean, one of the things we talked about is we are very good at relationships, because we have to maintain a relationship for maybe 3 years to get a piece of work from a client. That means that actually any company that's developing a vaccine usually starts talking to us very, very early stage, and we have a lovely relationship for 3 years with us. The bigger CROs who like to do those big field trials that come after us generally don't get to talk to that client until after we've finished. So, and then when they try to bid for that work, it's usually a price and cost capability bidding war that goes on between 2 or 3 big CROs. You can imagine that one of those companies might really love to have had the relationship we've had for the last 3 years with that vaccine developing company. So I think that if we get this right, we become a very, very attractive target for a company looking to add what is a highly specialised service, but also creates relationships that support their later stage services in a much stronger manner.
So yes, so that was going to lead me on to the next point about an exit strategy.
Yep, see, I can read your mind as well as that. The exit strategy will always be, I think, to create a stronger, more profitable business going forward. Now, whether that is not an exit, but actually a further acquisition and growth business, which I think could still be a very viable option, because there are lots of services out there that can be built into the services we've created. Or, as I say, it's actually to get it to a point where you become that really attractive component that sits better as a profit centre inside a bigger services business that adds to the profitability.
Thank you. Any more questions from the floor at all? Right, I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Trevor.